Okay. Dobry wieczór Państwu. Witam na pierwszym tylko i wyłącznie spotkaniu online podczas Simchat Haim Festival 2020. Naszymi gośćmi dzisiaj są Chen Arieli, wiceburmistrzyni miasta Tel Awiw oraz dziennikarz Mike Urbaniak, który poprowadzi tą rozmowę. Dziękuję serdecznie naszym gościom za przyjęcie zaproszenia. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We started first only online meeting during the Simchat Haim Festival 2012. I warm welcome our guest, Chen Arieli from Tel Aviv, and Mike Urbaniak, who will be our journalist for this meeting.
The host of the evening.
Guys, stage is yours. Our virtual stage is yours. Have fun and enjoy this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Welcome everyone and welcome Ham. Shalom.
Hello. Good evening.
How are you doing?
You know, considering COVID-19, I still have my work and my family, and we're safe and healthy, so everything is okay. You get perspective with everything going on all over the world now.
Yeah, that's for sure. But you know, it's not just savoir vivre today to ask how are you doing because of the situation, because of the pandemic. I just realized that this is one of the most important questions we ask yourself every day.
Yes, we need to ask ourselves every day, and I think it's not that just the pandemic; it's also the economic crisis that is hitting all over the world, and sadly we're gonna see lots of consequences of the pandemic in the next year or so, even after the pandemic is long gone.
Yeah, that's for sure. So how is life in Israel, in Tel Aviv, during the second lockdown? Because as far as I understand, you are currently locked down by the government, right?
We just finished the lockdown from the government 2 days ago. Yesterday. And most of the restrictions were removed, but the kids still not going to school. We have just the young kids going to kindergarten, age of 0 to 3, and now we are looking for ways to open the education system, but it will take a while. Restaurants and cultural places are still closed, so Tel Aviv, which is this is the main thing that Tel Aviv has to offer in the cultural sphere, is still under lockdown, and the streets are empty. We just reopened the beaches, but so here in Tel Aviv it's still summer, and it's the beginning of fall, but it's summer. We had like 30 degrees today, so you can visit the beach starting yesterday, so people are breathing fresh air, but we had a really long lockdown during all the holidays of the Rosh Hashanah. Actually, Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur and Sukkot, we were locked down.
Quite sad holidays, right?
Wow, it was really sad holidays. You know, in the Jewish culture, the holidays is all about, especially the holidays of Rosh Hashanah, is all about celebrating with your family and
together.
Yeah, and people were not allowed to go outside their homes for 1 kilometer. So you can walk by foot or maybe see, but you weren't allowed to see friends or family, and people celebrated alone in their homes. It was sad holidays, but hopefully it helped, and now we have a lower number of people who got the pandemic and will rise out of it with health, and we can start repairing our economic.
Yeah. So talking about the sadness, is there a place for Simchat Haim, a joy of life? That's the name of the festival, Simchat Haim. So is there a place nowadays for Simchat Haim, or we just totally preoccupied by problems and obstacles we have to overcome? Is there a time for Simchat Chaim now?
You know, I love you for asking that question. It's a philosophical question in my eyes, because I believe deeply in life that every crisis is an opportunity to rise in my personal life. And I take it to the general life that we live in the world and in the universe, in Israel and in the other places out of Israel. And I think this pandemic came to learn us something all around the world, maybe that we need to value more our lives and the economy situation that we live in, and maybe we should buy less and spend more time with family and friends. Maybe we should take care of our elderlies better. You know, in my position at the municipality, I'm the vice mayor of the Tel Awiwu Yafo municipality, and I'm in charge of welfare and public health. And I tell you that in Israel, the system of welfare was not that great before the pandemic, but this pandemic and this crisis is an opportunity to rise above what was broken before, and it's an opportunity to fix it. And I think this is what our leaders are not doing, and hopefully we'll have other leaders political leaders that will do the right thing to do here to manage that crisis and to rise from it and to build a support system. But this is my political view of it, and I can talk about it for a lot of time. But in the personal level, it's an opportunity to see solidarity. You know, I don't know if you see it in Poland, but in Israel, people are helping each other. You get to know your neighbors. And, you know, we live in a digital world that we forgot to say hello in the street and to ask our old neighbor, do you need a hand? Do you need medicine? Do you need some groceries? And this pandemic brought us back to the values. If we talk about Judaism, it's one of the basic values of Judaism is caring for one another, and it's one of the basic values that I live on in my personal belief, that you need to open your eyes and see the other. And I think this pandemic all around the world brought out back again the solidarity, and people are helping one another and raising money for one another, and this, we need to take it strongly to our hearts and really pray that when all of this is over, we'll continue holding that solidarity in our hearts and continue seeing one another, because there's nothing like a human contact and a human relationship. Not any screen will replace it.
I love your optimistic take from this. And I think that was something I was thinking when I decided to ask you about the Simchat Chaim. Like, it's so difficult to really, feel any joy right now. But if there's any, that's what you just said. That just what you said. So I'm optimistic that you're optimistic.
Optimism is a state of mind, and I cannot call myself optimistic, but I think that it's not constructive just to be sad.
Yeah.
Like we need to be sad, and we need to put place in our difficult emotions that we have, and we need to talk to one another about them. But we also need to be constructive of what we're gonna do, and how we're gonna reach our hands to help that pandemic or the social situation that occurred by the pandemic. We're not doctors, we cannot invent a medicine, but we can help our neighbors, and we can
reconstruct them, right?
yeah, and if we have the fundings, we can donate money to NGOs that are helping people who doesn't have it. And if we get a help from the government and we do not need it, we can pass it on. And we have things to do. Even if we lost our jobs, we can be constructive of open our minds and trying to find different job for us. And this is a situation that optimism is a political view. You need to be able to see the light behind the end of the tunnel, and this is what will make us survive. And if we won't survive that, it will be hard to survive, because it's tough. The situation is tough, and it's going to be tougher in my eyes in 2021. It's going to be also a tough year. The pandemic won't be behind us, And first of all, we all need to be grateful for what we do have, and to remember that the constructive life that we all live in the Western world, that we always want to need more and want more and achieve more, we can maybe get a message from the universe. It's okay to be thankful for what we have, and maybe to share it with others, and maybe to rethink about our priorities in life, and maybe the break we got to be in lockdown inside with our generic families, with small relationships, maybe it's like kind of back to basics, you know? And it's a choice. It's a choice.
It
We
is.
need to choose. We need to choose life. We need to choose the bright side of it, and to see the difficulties and to rise above them. And it's easy to say than do it, because if you lost your job, it's hard to maintain any optimism perspective. But we out of it, the despair is a much more harsh disease than corona.
You're
And
absolutely
we don't
correct.
need to give the corona to win and not the despair to win. The humankind can resist and can win also the coronavirus. We won different viruses all through histories, and we won several wars, every public set wars, and we're here to stay. And the human genome is organized to overcome, and we shall overcome. We have to hold that notion, and to hug, to give a big hug to whom needs to be hugged when he's sad, and needs to give to this despair a small window to be.
Since we're taking part in the Jewish Culture Festival, I would like to ask you about your Jewish background. Could you please tell us a bit about your roots? Because I didn't have a chance to ask you when we talked a year ago when we met in Warsaw. So could you please a bit?
Of course. I grew up in Haifa, which is a really small town, 90
It's not
minutes drive from
small.
Tel Awiwu. It's small and beautiful, and we have the best beaches in Haifa. So if you come and visit, I'll take you there. But it was really, for me as a lesbian, as an LGBT, it was really hard to grow up in Haifa. When I grew up as a teenager, there was no internet. You know, I'm that old, and I couldn't Google.
Here,
Yeah, I couldn't ask Google, I'm in love with my best friend, what should I do? I grew up in a really secular home, but our house was secular, but was really mainstream in all life perspective. We should get married with a man, have kids, have a dog maybe, and then retire. And the life course was really
kind of traditional way.
traditional way, and I haven't seen any different models around me, not in TV, not in society, and it was really harsh. We did keep all the customs that the Judaism have, all the holidays. We were fasting at Yom Kippur and didn't eat any bread at Pesach, but other than that, we had secular life. But really tradition perspective of how one should live his life. So when I was really had the first chance, I ran away. I took myself out to Tel Aviv, and Tel Aviv was my savior, was my refugee, my place to be whoever I am, and my place to be free with my identity, even if I didn't know to say what was my identity. I heard the word lesbian for the first time when I was 18 or so. And
Wow, really?
and today kids are like in age of 9, they can say, I'm bipolar, I'm a bisexual, I'm a poly binaric non-gender person. And I'm so envy with the kids that they have that all information. But we can also remark that digital world brought a lot of information to the table, but also a lot of loneliness and struggles that it's a different talk maybe, but we need to also say that. So my relationship with Judaism was not a conflict because we didn't practice Judaism in a religious way back home. But as soon as I came out of the closet, I realized that it was like a notion in the community that you cannot be gay and and Jewish in the same body. Like you need to choose one identity. You can, yeah. Like when I came out 20 something years ago, it was a notion that you cannot be also religious and also openly gay. Those two identities are clashing inside of one person. So people that came out chose to leave their religious communities. Many of my friends that were living in the religious communities chose to leave their communities and actually to be to live in Tel Aviv or other central cities that allow them to be openly gay. But we can see quite an amazing revolution in that field in the past 10 years or 8 to 10 years with the rise of many of LGBTs that said, I don't want to choose between me being Jewish to between me gay or lesbian or even transgender. And they said to their communities, we're not leaving, we're here. You need to learn to accept us. We need to learn to live together. And my Judaism beliefs are not in clash with my identity as a lesbian or a gay man. And the communities, mostly the not the ultra-Orthodox communities, but the Orthodox, of course, the Reform community was the first one to open the gates to LGBTs. But now many Orthodox communities, even ones that we mark as harsh Orthodox communities, are open to LGBT identities in their communities and are accepting more and more LGBT families to their communities. Of course, you still cannot be ultra-Orthodox in Bnei Brak or Mea Shearim in Jerusalem, and also to be openly gay. But this is, it's a step in the way, we'll go there. And you know what's interesting to see is the remarkable bridge that it's similar to the Arab society, that just starting now in Israel, the Arab society is really traditional society, and the Arab society is just now starting to realize that there's Arab LGBTs, and they need solutions. Like kind of where we were 20 years ago with the Judaism and the LGBT identity, now the Arab society in Israel is starting to get this identity as a fact. And they're not trying to change LGBT Arab. They're still, conversion treatments. We need to talk about conversion treatments because they mostly happen in ultra-traditional societies. And in Israel, you can find ultra-traditional societies in the Arab community and in the religious community. And the only communities that conversion treatments are happening in Israel is in the Arab society or in the religious society. And it's, I don't know if it's out of the law in Poland.
No,
is it?
Legal in Poland, and
in Israel too.
In Poland, it's connected with the ultra-conservative Roman Catholic Church. So that's
So you know what I'm talking about. But the fact that it's not out of the law, like in most of Western cities and countries, it's one thing we have in common as countries, Poland and Israel, and we need to join maybe forces and to work together, because this is scary for me, because as long as conversion treatments are not forbidden by the law, it's give the ultra-traditional communities the opportunity to control our minds and to brainwash young boys and young girls that are not all right, that are not okay. And this is really our responsibility to, first of all, do lobby work with our governments to change it.
Yeah.
a strong lobby work of the NGOs,
Really.
of the LGBT NGOs,
Yeah.
and you have a hard government to handle us too.
And
We are similar in that too.
right now it's just impossible. Right now we have a government that strongly supports this entire idea. So now it's totally impossible. But I know that the European Parliament within the European Union is, I think, working or thinking about banning this kind of therapy. But nowadays in Poland, we have to really wait for a totally different government. But we'll see.
Hopefully, we both have a different governments soon.
Hopefully we meet next year.
Hopefully we'll meet next year and we'll talk how we have a wonderful government that's promoting LGBT rights and minority rights, and talk about women equality and a lot of good stuff. Amen.
Amen. When we talked a year ago during our meeting in Warsaw, you have told me, when I asked you about your identity, I am a woman, I am a lesbian, I am Jewish, and I'm an Israeli. And I wonder, do you weigh parts of this identity? Do they change during your lifetime, or are they just, constantly, perfectly equal parts of your identity? How does it work when you have so many interesting, let's say, really different identities that are put together in one person? Do they shift? Do they change? Is there a time in your life when one identity is taking over another one? How does it work?
I think the identity talk is, we all know it, but we need to, I think when we're LGBTs, we are talking the identity talk more than anyone else. And I'll explain. Because you cannot only be gay. It's also always will be an additional, because we're human beings and we are, I'm gay, but I'm a woman, and I'm gay and I'm Jewish, and I'm gay and I'm like my other identities. It's the LGBT identity is always an additional identity that kind of comes on a skin on top of other identities, and it gives us the perspective of working with our identities. When you're in the closet, you're choosing not to put your LGBT identity out there. This is like the game of identities. And when you are when you're ultra orthodox and you're gay, you're choosing to save your life and not to say you're gay, because people will try to convert you or try to send you outside of the community or kick you out of home, or in other society will beat the hell out of you in severe violence. We hear a lot of cases that we need to talk about it, that many of our community members are suffering from severe violence, not just from their own families, from their own communities, at home, at small places. I know that you have several cases in Poland that the situation is really harsh.
Yeah, absolutely.
And maybe we'll talk about it more later, but I really want to send a message to all of the LGBTs in small places the community are not accepting. Be strong, because things will change. It will get better. I promise you, it's getting better, and I'm here to help everyone and anyone to start seeking ways to make it better. It's up to us. I promise you. We had a lot of communities that we could have dreamed that they will accept LGBTs. It's our work to be accepted in the communities that we live in. It's possible, and we're here to help you. We're all sisters and brothers. We need to remember that. But getting back to the identity talk, my first identity that I was proud to say that I am was the feminist identity. Because growing up in Haifa, which is really, it's not that small.
It's not small. Stop saying that.
It's not small, but it's smallish in the way of living. It's like a kibbutz. And people going to sleep early, and it's kind of really low city. And this is, for me, to discover feminism, it was a bliss. It was the first time I allowed myself to challenge all the things that I grew up on, all the beliefs that women had this certain role to raise the family and not to have major careers and to be the second course to their husbands. And it was, feminism gave me the opportunity to challenge and to seek other possibilities to live my life. Before that, I thought that I was sure that I'm doomed. When I was 14, I thought that my life is doomed, that I will go to the army, because in Israel you go to the army when you're 18. You go to the army, and then I'll release from the army, I go to the university. After the university, I'll get married with a man that I'll meet in the university, and then we'll have 3 kids, a dog. We'll work. We finish work, we do pension, and then we'll die. This is like my life course, and I couldn't find myself in any of these structures. And feminism gave me options, gave me the. I always say that the feminism gave me the question marks,
So
because
feminism really liberated you.
it liberated me from the old and this gave me the opportunity to put a question mark instead of exclamation mark at the end of sentences. Like, do I have to live my life like that, question mark, or I have to live my life like that? And when I had the question mark instead of any other perspective, it was a bliss to understand that I can really ask myself, is this okay for me? Maybe I can explore more options to live my life. And this is what feminism gave me. And this is like the first identity that I'm proudly carry on myself. And still, it is the first identity. Whenever I introduce myself, I'm saying feminism, I'm a feminist as my first identity. I believe that me being a lesbian is a political identity also. So this is how you define yourself. And of course, that when I go to work every day as the vice mayor of Tel Aviv, I'm not always putting my lesbian skin or my feminist skin, but I don't think we can take it out of us. It's kind of lenses that we have lenses in our glasses. I would always see the world through my lesbian glasses or through my feminist glasses, through my Jewish Israeli glasses.
But is it empowering? But is it empowering or annoying? Because there is this problem with LGBT politicians. When they go to the politics, we have the examples in Poland, and they become the first mayor, the first lesbian mayor, the first gay mayor, the first gay minister, the first gay whatever member of the parliament. Sometimes they get, annoyed that stop talking about my gayness because I'm also for this, and for that. And I know that this is a kind of a problem for many LGBT politicians, to be treated as, anybody else, any other politicians. But at the same time, it's important that they are gay, that they are first gay, that you are the first lesbian, openly lesbian deputy mayor of Tel Aviv. So for you, it's more annoyment, or what is it really? What is it really?
I think you open a question. Yeah, you open a question. Look, I have responsibility to my community wherever I go. My last position was the chair of the Agudy, which is the Israeli LGBT task force, and my daily job was to promote LGBT topics. Yeah. Today, my daily job is not to promote LGBT topics, but I take care of the LGBT community in everything that I do, because I see the perspective as being a lesbian, as being LGBT, and as being in my last position is the history of the history of the Agudy position. But you open a question of representation, and it's also a question in feminism that we talk about it. Is representation enough? Is it enough to have 50% women in the Polish parliament, or we also want them to be human rights advocates, promoting social bills and having a liberal perspective. Because we can have 50% of women in the Polish parliament and they'll all be really conservative. So or fascist point of viewers. So we need to talk about. I'm giving that example like really I'm exaggerating because we need to talk about representation. First of all, representation as a representation is a blessing, because there's a sentence in feminism: you can't be what you can't see. And I take it to the LGBTism as well. We can't be what we can't see. If I won't be the first lesbian, openly lesbian deputy mayor, so a young girl won't, lesbian cannot dream to be that. And if a woman,
So they need to know.
A gay man cannot be a minister. So to have a representation in higher levels, in higher corridors of LGBT people is amazing, is good. But
so you're
it's
not tired of it when they, another person and journalist is asking you, so as a first openly lesbian deputy mayor of Tel Awiwu.
First of all, I don't get a lot of that questions, because in Israel it's
in Israel, of course, they know you, but abroad.
Also not. Like, it's not, you have a lot of parliament members that are LGBTs all around the world. It's not that big news. But what I'm saying, I'm taking the representation conversation one level higher, when I think that we need to ask, is it enough that we have LGBT representatives in the parliament and in the high corridors? And I say it's not enough. It's not enough because, our identities are what connects us. But what makes us a community is the values that we believe in. And I want people to represent me if we share the same values, not if we just share the same identity. Not all of the lesbian in the world, I'll agree with them. I prefer to have a gay man or a straight man promoting the things that I believe than any other allies that I cannot. So representation as it is a great thing to have, but it's not enough. We have 2 ministers in Israel that are openly gay.
And they're right.
And I cannot say that it is helpful for the LGBT community.
Yeah.
And it's a case study to look at. So representation is good because a young boy can see a minister in Israel and he's openly gay and is posting pictures with his husband and his young boy. And the young boy say, it's normal. I can be gay and this is priceless. It can save lives. But it's not enough. You can be a member of the LGBT community, but not all LGBT representation is an advocate for the LGBT community. We need to find allies within the communities and outside of the community. And representation is a bliss anyway, but it's not enough. We cannot really think it's enough and be happy that. Like, we need to continue work to build partnerships and allies outside our there's many of my straight friends that are, so I call them, like, I have this joke with my friends that you are my honorable lesbian, like they're straight and say, no, you're honorable lesbian. We gave you like the higher lesbian court gave you this.
I call my friends
yeah.
I call them gay to be, really. You should be gay.
Yeah.
What can we do? We cannot have everything.
Yes.
I couldn't agree more. You have a tattoo that says, not probably only one tattoo, but you have a tattoo that says courage.
Oh, yeah.
And my question is, where do you find courage? Have you always been so brave, or it's something that you learned from someone? Because you need courage to do what you have done and what you're doing. Where have you find it?
I think that what drives me the most in everything I do is the young Chen I was back in Haifa. this 14-year-old girl that was scared, I thought that I'm crazy. I thought that I have a disease. I thought that I'm having these thoughts about girls, and I didn't have a name for it. And I tried to commit suicide for twice, and I had really harsh days growing up. And whenever I'm in a position that I need courage, I close my eyes and I think of the girl that I was, and I don't want anyone to feel like that ever again. And I think I had this moment in my life that I realized that I want to change the things that I think needs to be changed in my environment, in my world, in my community, in my school, in my country, in my city, in my world. And I really believe that I did a tattoo of courage because I needed a reminder that the courage is something really from within, and we need to, we talked about in the beginning of our conversation about optimism and the press.
Yeah.
And we need to kind of, courage is the diamond that despair is covering. You know what I mean? Like, if you go deep into despair and your depression, you'll see a courage spot there. And we need to find it. And I don't want that any young girls in Haifa or in Poland or in any other place in the world will feel so bad as I felt that they try to take their own lives. And I know that there are a lot of girls and boys that are feeling like that in our days, but I'm doing every day whatever I can to help them not to be in the situation. And this by giving solutions that maybe they will be just older and wiser to meet. But this is kind of the place I get courage. I get this first fearful kind of superhero vibe, because I close my eyes and I remember how I felt so distressed when I was a teenager, and I felt no one is understanding me, and I have nowhere to go, and I haven't dreamt to be nothing. I was dreaming to not to be, and it's so sad that my courage is from there. I think that whenever I'm afraid, I remember this slow place I've been to, and I'm saying not anymore. I'll be courageous enough to stand up and change reality. And first of all, for myself, for the young 14-year-old me 30 years ago, and for others that are not born yet. We have a responsibility to give a better word to the people, that to leave behind a better word than we got. And we have to, I don't know, it's in my skin. You have to change what you think is need to be changed. And I think that we have less leaders that are doing it from the right reason. And I kind of want dreaming to bring back to politics and back to leadership the values that used to be invested in them. You say the word politics today, and people are.
Yeah.
And politics is good. Politics is actually changing the power positions between communities. And I'm into politics to do exactly that. It's a social cause. And I want to remind us that we can be our own representative inside of the structures. So we talked about identities. Whenever I introduce myself, I say, first of all, I'm Chen Arieli. I'm 44 years old, and I'm an Israeli activist. And I'm also the first open lesbian deputy mayor of Tel Aviv. But the first identity when I choose to introduce what I do in life is I'm an activist, because I choose to bring courage and activism to the higher floors of the municipality or any other places that will be there. It can be your own family sometimes, you know.
Oh, I know.
So
I know
yeah,
that.
my tattoos are reminders for harsh days. When I have harsh days, that I need a constant reminder to say, you know, I forget that I have it. So suddenly someone asks, suddenly, yeah, suddenly someone asks you, what is your courage tattoo means? And I need to remind myself. So I'll go to sleep today, and I will be thankful for you to remind me to remind me my own courage, because we need a reminder, because
Yeah.
it's you gave me a present by asking that question.
I'm glad. I'm glad. But you know, when you talk about courage, when you talk about activism, it leads us to the Aguda, which is the LGBT organizations you lead for 5 years, right? As far as I remember. And I want
Yeah.
to, yeah, and I want to ask you, um, was it hard for a woman to get in charge of male-dominated world? Because it's a problem in I think, every LGBT community, that many organizations, many institutions, and not mentioning, bars, are male-dominated. Gay men dominate this world. And that was always an issue when you look at the LGBT movement and community. So was it hard to get in charge as
Yeah,
a woman? Mhm.
it was really hard. You know, first of all, when we got into the Aguda, I had a partner, a gay man that was co-chairing with me, and he was really he was awesome. It was amazing to work together. But him being a gay man, a white gay man, and I'm being a white lesbian but female, I was always in the back, and he was like the star, the shining star of our shared work.
Mhm.
And I was like patient. I said, I'm here for the long stay, and I'm here. Um, um, I'm here not to be in the front. I'm here to be here. I want to change reality, and I'm in a position to change reality. So I could breed the secondary position that I had in my own position. And I think by that, I really built a trust relationship with all the other leaders of the community, because I stayed. I stayed, and I was patient, and I listened, and I wasn't involved just by finding credit. I gave credit to others, and I was patient enough to show them that there's other way of working.
Mhm.
And I really believe in that. It's not just a gender issue. I really believe in collaborations. I believe that you cannot build or do revolutions alone. The only way to do a major revolution is together, because we are stronger together. And any man or woman that are standing here and saying, I can do it alone, come after me, no. I will always look for partners, because I can stand on a hill shouting, we need to change the world, we need to change the world. But if I continue to do it alone, I will be a crazy old woman standing on a hill and shouting. And if people will join me, we'll be a group trying to change the world. And this is exactly what I did. And I was patient enough. I was 8 years in the Aguda, almost 6 years out of them I was the chair, 2 years as a co-chair, and then 3 years. Then we had an election, and I won in the first place. Really, it was really emotional for me to get all that appreciation and love from the community, and 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 I was the chair for 3 more years. And it's not enough to be a woman in those positions. We need to put feminist agendas in the management and in the way of we talk about and how we strategize our community. You know, every organization is leading by a man. Everyone wants his organization to be in the news or in most popular in the donors. And I brought different talk to the table. We brought the group of people we worked together at the Aguda. I wasn't alone. We brought a different change, a different language to the activism. We talked about how we can work together to achieve our goals. And it meant to say, okay, if the rabbi of Jerusalem is saying something homophobic, I won't jump into the press to respond. I'll call the Jerusalem Open House and say, this is in your territory. It's the Jerusalem rabbi. You need to respond. I'll give you my contact. I'll give you the to get into the media with my contacts. Not will interview about a subject that is about your life. And this is like kind of the first time we did it. People were like, "Why you don't want to interview?" Like it was like
you don't want to spotlight.
Suspicious. Yeah. And I believe in everyone loves a spotlight, and if in a political career you need a spotlight to survive.
Yeah.
But I believe that you need to earn a spotlight, and it's not how much spotlight you've got on how good is the lighting, you know. It's what you're saying. It's what you're saying, and I have a lot to gain by talking to you than just interview now to another TV show in Israel. And we need to show our stamina to the long run change. We live in a decade that people want everything instant, and major changes takes time. And if you want to do big things, you need patience. You need to be here long enough, and you need to have courage and stamina and to breathe an optimist view, to stand and to say, okay, it's a difficult time, but we can do it, and we'll make it, and it's not and it's not ending. It's not there's a one goal and then we can die. We need to constantly occupied ourselves by changing the society we live in. And it's not that we'll get up in one morning and everything will be amazing. Women will fully, transgenders will can be openly walking safely in the streets, and there was no race in societies in nowhere, and black skinned people won't be killed or be violated by the police in America, and everything will be amazing. No, we need to fight things like fascism and racism. We need to always show that there's another way than the way of the power of fascism and racism and powerism, and we need to give it a fight. We have no choice, and we need to do it together, and to show the fear that we're here to stay, and we're gonna beat it. I'm not going anywhere. So you can be racist, but I will be here to make sure that you won't be able to. And this is, if you're an activist, this is like the most important tip that I can give you. Don't let despair win, because you need to look to this fear in the eyes and to say, I'm here. I'm not going anywhere until reality will change. And it will change eventually, because this is nature. Things are changing. Kuvondarim are moving, you know? This is nature.
We're here, we're queer, to remind
Exactly.
the times of Stonewall. So yeah, I absolutely agree. But what would you say? What was the greatest achievement of your tenure in the Aguda? Do you have like one thing that you're especially proud of, or it just what you say, this collaborative work and changing kind of the way you do activism or politics, or there is like one or two things that you
Like if I were a man, I would probably say, we had the biggest demonstration, and we had 100,000 people on the streets. But this is not what I choose to say, because it was a moment that it was really important moment in my life. That moment at the square, that I stood on the stage and I was like, said to the Israeli Prime Minister, "We're saying no to you now, the community," and we had 100,000 of people in the square. It's the biggest demonstration that, I don't know.
Amazing.
It was amazing. So the smaller things are my marks that I'm in the right way. You know, the first time that we had our CEO forum, because when I got into the Aguda, all of the LGBT NGOs were dominated, most of them by men, and there was like a bad vibe between everyone. Everyone was fighting for donors, and no one was collaborating with one another. And we got to put everyone in one room. And this is like, 2 years after, the CEOs had a seminar. And the seminar subject was, where do we want to see the Israeli LGBT community in 5 years, and how we work together to get there. I wasn't the CEO, I was the chair. So I just drove to visit them in the seminar. It was up in Jerusalem somewhere. And I drove there to give the opening lecture, and I saw the sign, the Israeli LGBT NGOs yearly seminar, and the big question: where do you want to be in 5 years as a community, and how do we go there? How do we go there? And I start crying, because for me, this is what we need to work to aim to build structures that will be here, not just under my name or your name or any other name, to give to the universe structures that we can put as milestones that will help the plants grow themselves just by the sun and the rain. And now the CEO forum, as you know, new CEOs in the Israeli community are like, I want to be in this forum, and this is that seminar, that sign on the wall was like so emotional for me, or small things like the first conference of LGBT elderly community. I was the first one that said we need to take care of our elderly communities, because the pioneers of the LGBT community in Israel are getting older, and I helped a member of our board to lead that subject also. So this is small milestones that are, in my eyes, are important as much as that night at the square. And it's all related to one topic, it's all the same. We need each other. We cannot work alone. We need to work together, and we can achieve much higher achievements to our goal. The feminist movement and the LGBT movement didn't achieve high level achievements by one man or woman doing something alone. We had hundreds and thousands of people fighting for the same idea, and this is the only way we could succeed. So no one should have the notion that one soul just needs to urge another soul. Let's get up and make a social change. Once you convinced another human being, the rest is history. You'll see it. It's a movement. It's kind of nature movement. No one can stop it. When you have the eyes of change, and when you see it's possible. When you knock on one door and they say no, and you knock on 10 doors and they say no, but in the 11th door they say yes, and you say, "Wow, I have a partner." So it's worth the work. It's hard work, but it's worth it, because at the end of the day, you say, what I did today, I tried to change the world. Tomorrow maybe I'll do better, but today I tried. Sometimes it's just what all we need to continue trying.
You're just a Jewish mother.
I am.
I just really getting that answer. You are.
Yeah.
Where would you put in the scale from 1 to 10 the Israeli LGBT community in terms of equality, when you look at the world and you look like what's going on in the different parts of the world, where's the Israeli LGBT community on the 1 to 10 scale, in your opinion, today in 2020?
I think in general, you need to understand that the Israeli LGBT community is in a good place. But you have to see who is in a good place, because still the transgender community in Israel is suffering for depression and suppression, and you can say that the situation of lesbians and gays in Israel are good, but it's also, if they're Jewish, not Arab or asylum seekers, so the situation is better. So it's a complicated question. As a human rights advocator, I can say that we need to see how the mainstream of the LGBT identities into society, acceptance into Israeli society, are not overshadowing the more weak communities, LGBT communities have. It's kind of almost heteronormative in Israel to be lesbian or gay, but we still have a way to go when we're talking about the bisexual community or the transgender community. They still have a lot of suffering and oppression in those communities, and violence and unsecure solutions from the state. So we have a way to go in those communities, and I think we kind of need to shift our main goals as LGBTs, and not to move forward with any other goals until we're making sure that those communities are safe. Because to be safe is basic human right. To be safe and to live your life in dignity. And we need to make sure that all of LGBTQA plus, or all the identities in our community, are safe and have the ability to live in dignity. And as soon as we do that, we can continue advocating for more rights in the terms of families in Israel, etc. But we cannot forget the communities that needs their freedom and their security as we needed it before. And it's easy to get sucked into the heteronormative hug, because you see in every TV show there's a gay man, and mostly men, by the way, of course. Yeah. But you don't see a lot of representation of transgender figures. Not many that are not in like reality shows like The Big Brother or something like that, but not in the media or and we need those identities more and more on the screen, and more accepted to job places and in the employment industry. And we need to work as a society to accept the ones that are not just in the binary perspectives of women or men. We need to be much more flexible in our society to other identities on this range. But it's okay. It will go there. The change is around the corner.
Good slogan, but the change is around the corner. So, when I'm listening to you, and you're so passionate about the LGBT rights, and you're so passionate about the subject that you devoted so many years for, I'm wondering, why have you decided to leave this world, partly, let's say, this NGO sector, and run for public office? Is it just a different level of achieving your goals, or you just got bored by this LGBT plus, world and you just want, which is of course as well natural, right? So why have you decided to run for office, and you became the deputy mayor of Tel Aviv at the end of this?
It's a good question. I have to say that I really miss the sweaty T-shirt of the streets. I miss it. I miss it. I had fun in the civil society, but I believe that the civil society has a glass ceiling. I believe that in the liberal camp that I'm a part of, that see the word in equality and fairness and much more liberal point of views. I think that people from our camp, from the left camp, you can say, are buried in the civil society, and none of us are in the communities, in the government enough, and it's not enough to be in the position that begs the government to promote bills for our rights, for women's rights, for LGBT rights. You need to step in.
So you don't want to ask the government. You want to be the government.
I want to be the government, and we need to be the government. We need to get into parties and to vote who we want to run, and we need to start showing that we have power. We as a community, as a women community, as an LGBT community, or any other community that you're a part of, communities have power. You have a financial power and you have a political power. And people in politics kind of forgotten the method of it. Like, we are the public and we choose you, and you owe us a report of what you're going to do with our vote. We give you the power. We charge you with the power. And I got into politics because after 20 years in the civil society, I think to this day that there's a glass ceiling. You can do up to here if you're in the civil society. But if you get into the power positions, you can do more. And I do more for my power position. And I can tell you, it's much, much harder to be in that position. Because in the civil society, it's easier because it's civil society, so people are excusable for you, and you are from the good guys. And immediately when you step the lines, you're from the bad guys, and you get much more criticism, and you get much more public eye that offends you, and you pay a personal price that I cannot start to describe. And really, I miss. Tomorrow morning, I'm having coffee with the CEO of the Aguda, which I work closely for years, and I miss him, and I miss my friends from the ground. And
But you love your new position?
No, I don't love it, but I think it's important for people like me to be there. This is the most honest answer that I can give you. I don't love it. If I had the chance, I'm not sure that it was my primary choice to do, but I think that if you want to change, you need to be the change you want to see. I cannot shout at politicians and ask them to be what I think they should be. I need to get in there and be the change I want to see. And there's like a line. There's a boundary of what you can do from outside of the structure. You need to get in and to show people how you wanted things to get done, or to get it done yourself. And it's not easy because it's not that like I'm the prime minister and I can do whatever I want, but you find partners and you find ways to work within the power system. And I think our camp, especially in Israel, the liberal camp, the left wing, we're not used to be in the coalition position, in the power position. We're years are used to be in the opposition. And I think we need to remember, or to re-strategize to how to be inside of the power positions and inside of the power decision making. And the municipality is a good practice for it. Hopefully my next position will be at the Israeli parliament, and we can do a wider gap of stuff. But I think I urge more and more. I just opened a project, not by the municipality. It's my activism project with partners called Program 51, because we're 51% of the community, so of the public. So we opened a school for women politicians in Israel.
Oh,
So
wow.
we have, yeah. So
That's-
this is like an NGO project, but I'm still doing activism inside of the community, and I'm promoting women to politics. I think we need more LGBTs in politics. When I was the chair of the Aguda, I had a project that encouraged LGBTs to run to their own municipalities. And we had 15 all over Israel. We had 54 representatives running all across Israel, and we have 15 got in. So we need to encourage ourselves to be much more political. We don't need to be scared. We need courage to be political. This is the thing. This is how you make change in the world.
So you're not taking your potato from your office and you're not moving out, because you
No.
told me a year ago that your wife gave you a potato plant so you can remember, and you put it in the flower pot in your office. And
Tomato, yeah.
That was tomato.
Tomato, yeah.
Oh, sorry. I thought it was. I just remember there's potato. Well,
No, tomatoes.
tomato, potato. So it's tomato, and she gave it to you, so you remember that if you feel that this is not for you, you don't feel that you can do what you need to do, you can take this tomato and go back home and plant it in your garden and just do your garden work.
Yeah.
By the way, I just love it. I love it. So the tomato is still growing in your. In
The tomato is growing in my garden, and I still have it. I still have other plants in my office. I really believe that as we need to remember to be courageous, we need to be in a humble position about our power position. And the tomato plant reminds me to be humble, to be grateful, to be humble, not to take by granted any power position that I have, and to understand that it's not my name on the chair, it's the name of everyone who voted for me, and it's the name of anyone who believes in the same values I believe in, even if they didn't voted for me, even if they're not living in Tel Aviv. And I have an obligation to those people. It's not, I'm not owning that chair. I need to justify my sitting on the chair every day. And if I'm not doing so, I'll go home to grow vegetables, to grow tomatoes. And this is a constant reminder that if I'm not justifying my chair, I need to go home and be the one who grows vegetables in the garden and seeks for a hidden life, which is, it's okay to choose it. Sometimes I wish this was my choice. Sometimes I miss those quiet life and not to be criticized and in that public eye.
Yeah.
It's really lonely and it's not fun. It was much more funner to organize demonstrations and to put people on the streets and to say the government is bad. It's much better to be inside. I tell you, it's harder. But we need us inside. So I'm inside and I'm going to pull in more of us inside. So beware. We need more of us inside.
We're just, I think, out of time, but I have to tell you, I have to ask one more thing. How is Tel Aviv without millions of tourists, in the city? Because I read quite a few articles lately about places like Venice or Barcelona that, and about, local residents of those places, and they are quite actually happy because for the first time since many years, or for quite a few people for the first time ever in their lifetime, they got back their cities. They can enjoy their cities. And of course, it's kind of Schadenfreude, right? Because, you know, on the other hand, you have economy that is driven in those places by the, you know, flowing tourism. So I want to ask you, as a deputy mayor of such a popular hotspot for people from around the world, what do you think about it? Did you get this feeling in Tel Aviv, at least for a, you know, moment that, oh my God, this is so great, without all those millions of tourists in the city, or you never thought about it?
Of course, I thought about it. You know, when there's a lockdown, and
Yeah.
and you can just be in Tel Aviv, and it's only Tel Avivian or Tel Avivian Yafo residents can drive, so you have less traffic, you have less, you know, the infection levels are of the air was like lower and lower and lower in the last 6 months, and it was amazing to see that. And of course, it's nice to see the beaches empty, that you can sneak in and to be alone like in a private beach.
Yeah.
But Tel Aviv, Yafo is the central city that is like, it's the cultural capital of Israel. And it's hard for the businesses here to survive without tourists and without the commercials that are coming into the city. But Tel Aviv exists for more than 100 years, and we knew harsh times, and we shall overcome it. It will be okay. The tourists will come. We have a lot of income from tourists from Israel, and it will be, I think it happens to every central city now, all over the world. And yeah, for a Tel Avivian, it's kind of nice to have the city to ourselves. But I'm also hoping that the tourists will come back, so the economical situation will be continue to rise, and businesses won't need to close. So my heart is, of course, I enjoy it. You know, it takes me half the time to get to work every day, but
Yeah.
but it is. I hope that the sky will be open soon, and we'll see you back in Tel Aviv, because Tel Aviv Yafo is one of the fabulous cities to visit. You all know that, so I'm waiting for you to come.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
when you come, you look me up in Facebook and you told me I'm coming, and we'll meet at the municipality.
and we'll do stuff.
And of course, I'll show you around. There's a
Yeah.
lot of good stuff to do in Tel Aviv.
It's weird because it's really the first year that I'm not in Tel Aviv. You know, it's really weird. And for quite many of my friends here, because we always go to Tel Aviv every single year. So let me just end this great conversation with you by saying, next year in Tel Aviv.
Amen.
Amen. Amen.
Thank you so much,
you
Mike, for having me. It was amazing talk. Thank you. You're so amazing.
Thank you so much. I'm telling you, you're giving such a power to people. I really understand how you got when you are. Really, it is just amazing.
Thank you so much.
Inspirational person, and I'm so glad that thanks to the Simchat Chaim Jewish Culture Festival, we had another opportunity to talk a bit. So stay healthy.
Sure. So I'm going to see you in Tel Aviv soon, Mike, huh?
Yes, hopefully. Hopefully.
Hopefully.
Stay healthy, stay good.
Thank you so much.
Best regards to your wife, and do we have anything to add, Patrick, at the end of our meeting?
No, I want to just thank you. Thank you so much for the fantastic meeting. Very warm power, a little bit of positive attitude from Tel Aviv. I really miss from the city, and I hope we will see you the next year. I also plan to be this year, and I will be next year.
We'll see each
Thank you
other.
so much, Ken. Thank you so much, Mike. And thank you. Dziękuję Państwu również, którzy nas obserwowali i oglądali transmisję razem z nami, zarówno na Facebooku, jak i na YouTubie. Dziękujemy bardzo. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
See you.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Okay.